Well, hello everybody. Wanted to talk about the Perkins in my process, something I've been asked to do a few times and haven't gotten around to it. Life has been really exciting, very fast paced. And usually I just like to make music and film what I'm doing and sharing it. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to stop, take a break, do a little shop talk, just for those who are wondering about my process, how I go about this. And sorry for the shaking camera. I've got a camera attached to the desk, and I really don't have any other alternatives right now to get that resolved. So anyways, that's what's happening. It's going to be a quick video. I'm going to do the best I can to talk about really how I route, how I use the sends, what they're going to, maybe some of the plugins that I might use from time to time. I will say that when I start a new project, before I record it, I tend to noodle around a little bit, figure out kind of what the jam's going to be, get an idea what I'm going to be doing, and then I'll save my settings. And then I know kind of where it's going to start, what I might tweak in the middle, what to maybe stay away from, maybe some like high resonant frequencies. Sometimes I make mistakes and they get through. But for the most part, when I do these recordings, they're all one pass through. I don't do a lot of editing in the DAW. I tend to just maybe even out a few levels here and there. There might be a plugin on the end under the chain, like a compressor at most. But I do use heavy effects on each voice as I work with this. The thing is, I'm a very big fan of stereo voices in terms of percussion, except for some of the more obvious ones like bass, right? Heavy low frequency stuff. I don't tend to want to make wide. So what'll usually happen is I love the bass, love the kick drum. Voice ones usually always kick, and I don't really do any effecting on that. It'll go in on its own channel. There's an output on each one of these. There's a return, there's a send, there's a trigger for each voice that's in there. I should show, I'll flip it up and you can see if you're not familiar with it. But the way I go about ensuring that I get the best of both worlds, where I can get a dry signal and a wet signal, is what I'll tend to do is send the output and the send to its own input on my sound card. And then what will happen is, in some cases, this is not all the time, I'll have two tracks, one that's recording the dry signal and one that's recording the wet signal. And as I'm playing live, I'll be adjusting this, right? And then it'll be recording that in the DAW. And I'll move the phone over so you can take a look and see what it looks like with my camera, so you understand what that looks like. But that's just what's worked best for me. That's not the way, the one standard way I'd expect anybody to use this. I think this machine, as soon as you turn it on, put your headphones in, and you start jamming with it, it's raw, it's just in your face. It's a very aggressive machine, and that's just awesome. That's what its character is. But just because that's the way it is when you turn it on doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be, because the great engineers over there thought, hey, why don't we provide some external options for the effects rather than just providing one BBD delay, which is what they did. And it's great to have that on there, and it's a really useful tool that they've added. I'm really glad to see that. But for me, I'll use the sends and the outputs. I don't use the returns on the back, or I don't use the returns, because the returns essentially are going to be in mono. And sometimes that's okay. But for me, I like, with four voices, especially when I'm dealing really with three voices, I want to fill up space. So what I'll do is I'll wash a lot of effects with these voices to make them wider, make them more spacious, right? And I'll use Arturia as my favorite right now. I use the FX, I think I'm on 4 now. And some of the go-tos really are I'll use fragments, I'll use EFX motions, which I love a lot. I know there's some great drive and distortion that's on here, but the I think it's like Cold Fire that's on there, just does crazy stuff, right? And you put together these send tracks for each one of your voice, and you can get some amazing, I think, new textures and sounds that come out of it. When I'm doing a lot of dub house, dub tech, textures is really important. And I'm trying to get better at exploring and putting more and whatnot. But I have my MPC, it's a great sampler, probably be using that more often. But the point is, what I'm trying to get without getting off track is loading up the voices with effects that give it the texture I want for the type of music that I'm making. This may not be everybody's cup of tea. It's just the way that I work, and I have a lot of fun working this way, and it hasn't gotten old. And still, after having this for over a year now, maybe longer, I still find this machine to be so immediate, so approachable, so easy to just start and get ideas going. The ability to just modulate things on the fly, just twist things on the fly, record some knob movements, back out of the knob movements, just all the live stuff that they put into it. That's what I'm all about. I mean, I like producing offline here and there, but for the most part, to me, in this day and age, I'm going to get probably overrun by AI, right? Everyone is at some point to a certain extent. And we're kind of getting back to that world of, live production, right? Like watching somebody master their craft, what's going on in their head and their brain, doing what they're doing. And so this day and age, I'm a huge fan. So love the machine. Yeah, I get a little gear syndrome here, gear acquisition syndrome here and there to want to go out and pick up the next thing, whatever, like anybody else. But for the most part, I get a lot done right here on this box, just as it is. And having the effects on there, I can really take these voices and really make them bloom, if you will. And so that's just my style, and that may change from some videos you might have seen where I do more chill out here and there, whatever. But for the dub tech, that's it. And I'll go ahead and flip this so you can see the back of it now. So as you can see, this is channel 4, and each channel is the same. There's 4 of these voices that are on there. And again, not all the time will I actually use the output. Sometimes I'll just run the sends out into their own inputs, and then I'll have the main out doing its thing. So I'll be recording the whole track dry on one track in Bitwig is what I use. And then I'll have a send track for each one of my voices. And so that, again, I change a lot. Some of this I might be like, I'm just going to use one of these voices, and then everything is going to go to out on the out, and I'm not going to have any sends or whatever. I change it up a lot. But generally, that's kind of how I approach it. And that's what works for me. I don't really use a trigger. And again, I don't use the return because it monos everything. Still, it's useful, pretty cool. But just haven't gotten to the mono thing these days. Maybe someday I'll start using more mono. So with that, I'm going to move over to the computer. Well, first, before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and rig up the sends. And we're going to go main out, and then I'm going to rig up the sends to go on their own track. So you're going to see voice 1 will be its own track, 2, 3, and you'll see effects. I'll mark it for you so you understand it. But we'll get that started. I'll get that rigged so you can see what's going on. I will send some audio into it so you can kind of hear what's going on, and then we'll just do like a live demonstration of kind of how it all works and go from there. So the next is we're going to go right over to the computer and take a look and see. Okay, let's turn these guys down here, and you'll see some of my tracks here. I'm going to click from 1 here. Nothing on the kick. Track 2, I put some effects there. Same with 3, same with 4. So now we're going to hit play, and you're going to hear it dry, and then we're going to bring in the send to bring the effects in. So let's start with voice 2. getting a little crazy, but I wanted to be extreme so you could hear what's going on here. Track 4's got some interesting stuff on it. And then while tweaking all this stuff, it just takes you to crazy places. So usually I'm a lot more subtle than that. A little spiky there. Things are a little out of sync. Because usually in most cases, what I do is I don't trigger the sequencer from here. I trigger from my Oxy 1. But I don't send notes from the Oxy 1 to the Perkins. I just send transport information, so start and stop. So I have that set up in here to do that. So it's listening. So that's how I'll always do it. I'll usually take the, all the time, I'll take the Oxy 1 and I'll send the start stop messages to this. I'll send MIDI notes maybe to my UDO Super 6 or a bassline, any other synth, right? I'll just go ahead and send that from here. This is my main sequencer. Always love using it. But this sequencer on here is one that I will use, the drum machine sequencer. That's the odd thing. That's the only time I won't use the Oxy 1 to send notes. I've tried it before. It's not the same. It kind of defeats the purpose of this by having what has been engineered for this machine is a complete unit and performance unit. It's just too quick to get to what you need to do, hold the shift, do the thing, and go. And there's not a lot of menu diving that's in there. So this is pretty extreme. I know it's not typically what you hear when I'm doing my dub tech, but this is something that I wanted to show that hopefully makes a lot of sense to people. This is not something I normally do. It's gonna probably, I've got a lot of respect for these people that make these YouTube videos that do a wonderful job of these demonstrations and cutting back and forth and having the time to do that and doing such a great job. It's not easy. I can tell you that right now. It's definitely a lot easier to improvise a track for me and then just turn this thing on and record in my DAW and post it up on YouTube. But certainly giving this lesson in what I do and trying to explain it is certainly a bit challenging. So hopefully you guys got something out of it, that I made a whole lot of sense to you on this, and it's something you can incorporate and try out yourself. But I really do find that you can tweak quite a bit and go pretty much limitless on this. And you could add pedals if you want, if you don't want to go in the box. As I'm doing here, I've got a Behringer with 8 ends, and that's what I use. I just send it into my audio device and then run it off Bitwig. It's kind of, a lot of effects are sort of, hey, set it, then kind of forget it. And then, you kind of tweak the taste. And with all these different parameters, you can make that effect kind of sound different without you actually having to affect the effect, if you know what I'm saying. So as you could see, as I was working on Voice 4, it started to change things quite a bit. Just depends what you're using. But again, for me, what I use is I love to use Arturia, and I don't typically use the distortion, although I did in this case. I do tend to use the delays and reverbs, and I also use the Air Delay Pro. That's a huge one. People think that plugin is something for an MPC only, but it's not. They've got Flavor Pro and Air Delay Pro. I use both of them, and they're both amazing. The Flavor Pro is a great tape kind of warbler and distortion and lo-fi if you want. Does a fantastic job. It's what I've always wanted in a plugin. The only thing with those two plugins is that a lot of times you'll boot up your session and then you won't realize they're not working because they need to reach out to a server and then update. It happens like every couple of weeks, and it's a super big drawback of it. So you got to pay attention. But those are my plugins. That's what I like to use. This is it, guys. This is what I use, guys and gals. this is what I like to use. And yeah, hopefully I'll get another track here soon. Maybe I'll put one in this weekend if I can squeeze some time in to do it. But wanted to stop, give a little shop talk on what the Perkins is, how it works for me, my workflow. And yeah, well, everybody, take care. Peace out.